and Congressman Welch's office are all committed to helping us get the best possible results for Vermont over the next 2 years. But we're all going to need to be increasingly creative on top of already tremendously creative work that you do. We really want to commend you on tackling the toughest issues on this. It is not, particularly it is not easy to choose what to stop doing in favor of the things that are most important. And your help as a diverse experience on the ground with the people to help us make those difficult choices and to work on our front is particularly important. I want to be clear, the governors make this an incredibly clear priority for us. This is just the start of the work that we have to do. Our agency, the Agency of Commerce, will be working with Senator Racine and the Agency of Human Services, our partners in the housing field, the governor's office, the legislature, and back with all of you to get these recommendations into full force, and we really appreciate it. Together, we will break down these barriers to make sure everybody has a safe place to live. Thanks for your dedication.
My name is Lucy Lewis. I represent Harvard, Walden, and Standard in this chamber, in this building. I am also the majority leader of the House Democrats. And before I assumed this role, I was sitting where you are. I was the director of an affordable housing development organization serving in Will County. And I just wanted to very briefly, I know you guys have had a really long day, I just wanted to very briefly say that on behalf of myself, Vermont House Democrats, and the Speaker of the House, Shep Smith, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, that we honor you, we value you, we understand how difficult this work is. As I was listening to the reports from all the groups that you were participating in and thinking about this, it occurred to me that the issues really are the same as when I was involved in housing work as well. But what has changed is I think about 5 more layers of complexity have probably been added to the problems. And I know that this is very difficult work, but what I also know from being involved very intimately in this housing community in Vermont is that we have a depth of knowledge and talent that is unsurpassed nationwide in this state. We have a lot to be proud of here. You are doing really phenomenal work. And it's not just the awards that tell us that, the national and international awards that you've been getting and the Vermonters have been getting for the housing work, but it is also, of course, just the on-the-ground reality of the appreciative people who now have housing because of all of your efforts. So I honor you, I thank you, and I just want you to know that I really appreciate everything you're doing, and on behalf of the Speaker and the Vermont House, I want you to know that our door is open, and we would like to be collaborative partners with you in any feasible way that we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Secretary Miller, Secretary Racine, the entire team. Patrick, you've done an extraordinary job. Most of all, to all of you who did the hard work. I've been to Barrie, Burlington, St. Albans, Brattleboro since I saw you this morning. But I'm glad to be back. And I'm sorry I missed what happened in between. But clearly, you've done great work. And I just want to close this because I know that it's been a long day. By just briefly reacting to the brief reports that I just heard that you worked so hard on before you got here and that you worked harder on today. Because I always fear that it's something, a day like this and the efforts that went into it, that we'll kind of end up on the shelf somewhere. And that there'll be no reaction from me and from the administration and from all of you. And I want to make sure that we make this a solid beginning where we get results. And we don't just kind of go home and say, wow, we did good work. Done. Because we know the challenge. You have done good work, and we have more to do. And if I can just comment very briefly on the reports you just gave, starting in the order that they were given, I think that as Patrick pointed out, and as Secretary Racine said this morning, if we don't have our act together, it's hard to expect the state to have its act together in terms of a united plan to end homelessness. So I think it's critical that, as Patrick pointed out, we have one-stop shopping in the agency, that we clearly have a designated place to go for housing, that we see at the agency every homeless Vermonter as all of our clients, and that we help integrate the services between mental health, reach up, between landlords, housing supply, one place to go instead of the rather bifurcated approach that we have right now. And I promise them to sign an executive order that implements that policy. So thank you to the AHS Housing Policy Group for the work you've done, and we will get it done. The next report was from David on specialized housing, and that work is good too. I think the example that I cited this morning of the specialized housing in the sense that we developed in Winooski for veterans is an example of how to do it right. It's also very expensive, we know that. So in light of the resources that we face, I think the question is, how do we take what we're doing and do it better? And as you know, one of the top priorities for me is not only end homelessness, but to end recidivism in corrections. Because we're spending $136 million this year of all Vermont taxpayer money, not one penny of it matched by the federal government, to lock up Vermonters. And we know that 40 million of that is spent locking up nonviolent offenders. Nonviolent offenders, as you all well know, suffer from some challenges. Many can't read, many have drug and alcohol-related addictions, many have been sexually abused or physically abused, many have some mental health struggles. But that usually is not the best place for treatment, is not prison. We all know that. So if we can bend the curve by ensuring that we win the war on recidivism and then use some of those resources for specialized housing, the only way that we're going to win the war is if they have a place to go when they get out. I think it's worth mentioning that on any given day, there are 136 homeless Vermonters in prison. Their time is up, but we've got nowhere to put them. That's expensive housing at $47,000 a year. Divide that by 352 days and see how you do yourself over that cash. So the point is, I think the Specialized Housing Group did great work. There's a link between corrections, folks with developmental disabilities, and the kind of work we should be doing. And it isn't that we don't have the resources, it's that we're spending them in the wrong place. The next report was from Janet on deposit and security guarantees. I want to commend the work of the committees that got that done. I think there's huge potential there. We're wasting about $500,000 a year right now, losing deposits and securities that we could be using, working together with landlords on some kind of guarantee that allows us to use those resources to get people housing instead of watching it go down the drain. So that's an example of really good work. I'm excited about the deposit security guarantee work, and in the spirit of making money go further, I don't think that you could have done any better. So thank you to your group. Who is up next? The fourth one came from Daniel, and that was access to housing. I think that group had the toughest job, to be honest with you, and therefore I think they came back with the least specific recommendations. No lack of effort, but that's our problem. So, I do think that you rototilled some fertile ground there, getting at barriers to housing, support services for independence. I think, as Daniel said, it needs more work, and let's get that work done. Fifth up was, my memory, fifth up was Linda, and creating a statewide subsidy for housing. We've got to do that, and I'm committed as your governor to working together with you to get it done. Great work. I don't think it needs any more comment except that's an example of what a summit like this can do. Let's implement it. And the final report was from Rita, and Rita had the best presentation decorum. Let's be honest about this. Let's give her a hand. She caught me when I crossed. We all know it's about access, about keeping the housing we get. Retention is incredibly important, and I think we do a lot better there. And it's about expanding the inventory. And I think that our challenge of assisting people to stay in housing, to avoid homelessness, is probably the most important point that's been made here. What's wrong with us? Why is this country that has more empty housing than perhaps at any time in American history, don't we give folks a second chance? Why do we drive them in the streets, put up a foreclosure sign and pretend that's progress? And then we listen to the housing reports and they say fewer homes sold than any time in American history. At the same time that we have more inventory than any time in American history. And we have more homeless than any time in American history. Well, it doesn't seem like a genius needs to figure this one out. So I think, again, great work and great potential. And the question is, how do we develop a smart second chance proposal where banks and individuals will work together with us to get it done? Because it's always better for the kids, and it's always better for the Vermonters to keep you in your house than it is to drive you out and have an empty house in a market that's saturated. So, in closing, it is my firm belief that we can end homelessness in Vermont. I believe we can do it. And I believe we have the best minds and the most creative approaches. You know, no other state has the Vermont Land Trust. They don't. They're trying to copy us. No state has the homeless network that we have. We really are, we're a small rural state leading there. No state has the mental health delivery system that we have. They don't. I know there's people say we can always do better. Well, of course, we can always do everything better. But you know, we're investing $250 million in this state on mental health services, and that makes a difference in this battle. And we all know that we have decent landlords in almost all cases. People who don't want to just make money, but they actually tend to have a heart. So I think working together with all the entities that we have, we will succeed. And I can't thank you enough. This won't collect dust. We're going to see action. And let's find a way to measure our progress. And we're not making it fast enough. Let's come back and beat on it harder. Thank you for all your great work.